structure. Look how they make the pedigree. There's the regulation how to write the pedigree. For example, here for male you have the box like this, and for female you have the round shape like this. Yeah, and then how to mention about the relationship. This is the marriage signs, and if you have two stripes, it means the consanguinity. How to write the twins? There is also regulation. How to write the adoption? Also, you have to look at the how to write the pedigree analysis. Yeah. Why the pedigree analysis is important? Because you have to know from pedigree analysis, you know how much the possibility of other family get the same disease. Look this one. This is if this is you and your children and your parent is the first degree relation, and your brothers, your grandchildren, your grandparents as the second degree relation. This is the simple disease. If you look at the simple disease, you know the Mendelian, you have already learned about this. If there is the recessive and also this the autosomal dominant. Yeah. An X-linked recessive disease is an inherited disease that typically is seen only in males. Females may carry the disease but are usually not affected. Approximately half of the daughter of a carrier mother will also be carriers, and approximately half of the sons of a carrier mother will be affected by the disease. All daughters of an affected male will be carriers of the disease. However, sons can never inherit an X-linked disease from their father. In the multifactorial traits, the degree of relationship is often used rather than the fraction of gene in common. Risk of affected relatives fall off very quickly with the degree of relationship. You can look at the picture. That's why for estimating recurrent risk for complex disease, pedigree analysis is needed. Look at this example, yeah, the complex disease. How about the recurrent risk of cleft lip or cleft palate? Look at this picture. If the proband, the patient is male with unilateral cleft lip, it means the highest risk in the family is his son, yeah, 4.91%. If the proband is male bilateral, and the highest risk also the son, 11.54%. But if female bilateral, and who is the highest risk? The highest risk still the son and also his brother. How they get this calculation? They get this calculation by the study. This example is I get it from the American study. Yeah, is it the same with Indonesia? So you have to make a study about it. Yeah, if you don't have the study in your population, then you can use another population study to explain to the parents. But you have to explain to them because this is actually not in our population, but maybe it's give you the picture how the disease will be recurrence in other family. Who will get the genetic counseling? There is two types of genetic counseling. First as the predictive counseling, second is reproductive counseling. The predictive counseling is related to the health of the counselee. This usually the adult onset disorder like genetic of cancer, neurogenetic disorder. The patient is, or the counselee is the patient in the family with a possible genetic disorder. Reproductive counseling is related to the wish of having a child. For example, parents with a previous child with a possible genetic disorder, or one of the parents has a possible genetic disorder, or there is consanguinity of the parents. It means the parents have a family correlation, and the exposition to teratogenic or mutagenic drug. Genetic tests can be classified according to their purpose. The first, diagnostic testing, is used to confirm or rule out a specific genetic disorder. The second, predictive testing, is used to predict future risks of disease. This includes pre-symptomatic and predispositional testing. A third is intended to help couples make reproductive decisions. Pre-symptomatic testing is a method for identifying person carrying the disease gene before symptoms appear. Predispositional testing is a method for identifying persons carrying the susceptibility disease genes. In pre-symptomatic genetic testing, a healthy person is tested for condition with delayed onset. A positive result indicates that the patient will develop the condition but doesn't indicate when this will occur. In predispositional genetic testing, DNA is analyzed to detect genetic variations, which, if present, are statistically favoring the possibility of developing serious diseases. A positive result indicates a need for increased surveillance, while a negative result implies a risk similar to the general population, but is not unimportant. And about reproductive counseling? There is available option you should know for the reproductive counseling. If the parent asks the possibility of getting another child with the same disease, and you have already calculated the risk, and you will give the option to the parent. Accept the risk and get another children, or refrain from getting more children, or do the prenatal diagnosis and termination of pregnancy when affected, do the pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or do the gamete donation, newborn steering, and adoption. I will explain one by one. Prenatal diagnosis tests used to see if the fetus actually has a particular problem. The techniques used for prenatal diagnosis include invasive amniocentesis and chorionic villus sampling. Most amniocentesis are performed between 14 and 20 weeks gestations, while chorionic villus sampling can be safely performed between 9.5 and 12.5 weeks gestation. Within the amniotic fluid, there are fetal cells which can be grown in culture for chromosome analysis, biochemical analysis, and molecular biology analysis. Pre-implantation genetic testing is a technique used to identify genetic defect in embryos created through in vitro fertilization before pregnancy. Sperm and egg are united in a petri dish, and when the blastocysts reach the egg cell stage, it is removed and screened. Only unaffected blastocysts are transferred to the uterus for implantation. In the United States, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis was successfully used to screen embryos for the absence of the thalassemia disease gene. A couple may also choose to use donor eggs or sperm if the one partner has a genetic disorder that might be passed on. Donor eggs procedure involve using the eggs of a donor after stimulation of the donor's ovaries. The eggs are fertilized with sperm from recipient male partner, and the embryos are transferred to the uterus of the recipient. Donor sperm is collected from the donor and prepared for assisted insemination. By law, all donors are required to screen for HIV, hepatitis, and other sexually transmitted diseases, as well as genetic problems.